we should launch into the finale because we watched it out of context for me and Reed.
But you see, this is the most important thing. Are you really out of context? Have I been keeping you up to date
Well,
the whole
that's
season?
true.
What do you
But
guys
like
think?
even out of context, I feel like this episode was, first of all, one of the best episodes of television I've watched
Hmm.
ever. Like it was, they did so much. They covered so much ground that I didn't, even though I didn't, even though I'm listening to Michael's reviews and explanations of what's happening, I didn't. I don't think it was important for me to know everything in context and to just watch it and enjoy it because it works for me without knowing all the ins and outs.
I feel the same. We have been on this ride with you, Michael, via your reviews, but it was like different watching it. I know you've been talking about how cinematic it is, but actually sitting there for the hour block, it's like it really is. Budget was there, like it was truly was.
They spent some money on this episode.
Mm.
Yes.
That's the thing. I feel like with Stargirl, not to like shade any of the other superhero shows, Superman and Lois aside, not to shade any of the other superhero shows, being on network TV sees them fall into the procedural story of the week kind of format or whatever. Stargirl plays the long game, and that is basically just a 13-part movie. It will make you wait for the action, but when it gives it to you, it delivers. And I feel like that really came across because Reed, for example, the previous episode you watched was a very, very quiet one. There was like no action whatsoever in it. And then this one was just like smack down from start through finish. And I feel like they really delivered on all fronts.
Yeah, I was overstimulated and and that's a compliment. That's not a bad thing at all. Like there was just so much happening, especially in that big fight scene. I was like, there's so much to look at. There's so many perspectives. There were so many like story points going on, but it never felt overstuffed or like they were trying to do too much. They were doing a lot, but it was never too much. There's always something to look at, a new dynamic changing. Everything was going on in that scene. And I was laughing, I was gasping, I was like freaking out. Not as much as last week on when we were talking about the penultimate, but that scene blew me away. Like it felt like a movie. It felt like I was watching a movie.
And for an extended fight sequence, it did not feel like you were sitting there for an abundance of time. Like I was exhausted by the end because I was exhausted for them because they were running around and
Oh
punching,
yeah.
kicking, throwing ice. But it had so much like heart to it as well as levity and just serious like action happening everywhere. I mean, I also laughed. I said this to y'all. I will not be over how grandma died. I just do not like the Wizard of Oz shot. I was like, not them doing that to her. And then they moved on. Like, yeah, she's dead,
Very,
but also
very
she's
quickly.
glitched.
Yeah, that I was divided about that. I loved the moment when I watched it. I will admit I laughed at something serious, but I was a bit divided about that because we talked about Grandma Icicle before. It looked like she was coming around. She was an emotional wreck when her husband had the heart attack, and meanwhile now all of a sudden she's like, "If you don't kill her, I'll kill you." Very one dimensional. And then she got Wizard of Oz out of the story, and I mean it worked. It worked, but like we did not want to get emotional over Grandma dying because we turned her into such a one-dimensional villain. It totally worked. It was a great moment. But like it's interesting watching how quick she pivoted back to like the villain kind of story. And I'm glad Grandpa Icicle came through in the end because like we did say he was kind of torn and he didn't want the fighting anymore. And we finally saw that when Beth sensed the hesitation and the two of them didn't want to fight each other. And yeah, we have time for Grandpa Icicle, even if we never had really had time for Grandma Icicle.
He kind of took me out and like I related to him because during that fight scene, there was a moment where he was just like standing there and like taking it all in, not knowing what's happening. People were like yelling in his direction. He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, with you there, Grandpa. There's a lot happening.
He's like, you don't want to fight me, and I don't want to fight you. Let's not.
He's
fight.
like, what am I doing here?
He's like, how far have we sunken that we're fighting in the middle of a junkyard, y'all? Like, stop and take that, internalize that. Like, but everyone's just doing their thing. Especially Courtney. I loved the sequence when she got the staff back. It was
Oh my
very
goodness.
I believe in me. And I loved it so much.
I said my biggest worry going into this, because it was a season finale and not a series finale, was that we weren't going to get one of those triumphant Stargirl moments, and people can call them cheesy or whatever you want. But because she'd lost the staff, because she'd questioned herself whether she was worthy or whatnot, I think we needed one of those moments to end not just the season, but the show on. And the goosebumps I got in that moment, I tell you, I love that we were able to stop the bam, 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 bam off the fight scene just to take in one of those lovely slow motion moments, taking the grandeur of Stargirl, if you will, the character and the show, and then go back to the craziness of the fighting. It was just, it made time for story beats, even though we practically spent half of the episode in this like non-stop fight scene. And between the Grandpa Icicle's I don't want to fight anymore, between Grandma Icicle's death, they knew when to stop at the right times. And I just feel like that really came in, because you can watch a lot of fight scenes and think, okay, when's this going to end? But I never felt like that with this one. It was just like, it made the wait for it worthwhile. And yet it still made time for story in the middle of the battle. And I really appreciated that.
Just people don't like the cheesiness of her big triumphant moments, because I feel like they should reevaluate their
That's the
feelings on
thing.
that.
I think Stargirl gets away with it because of its lighthearted and fun tone.
Okay.
Generally, a lot of people prefer their I'm dark, broody superhero kind of shows. Whereas I think the reason Stargirl shines brighter than any of them is just because it is so lighthearted and fun. Yes, it's written in a mature way, in the same way that those like dark, broody superhero shows would be, but it doesn't shy away from the light. It's not a depressing watch. It's a very fun watch. And like you guys said yourself, you felt like every lighthearted emotion within those space of 40 minutes. And I think that's what superhero content should make you feel. It was just a lot of fun. It was such a triumphant fight scene. It was such a triumphant episode. And yeah, give me those Courtney getting her the staff back in slow motion moments every day of the week. I love them.
I think I mentioned this too in the last episode that I watched, but this show writes to character relationships so well that like this is the second episode of the series that I've ever watched, and I was shipping Courtney and Cameron is his name, Icicle Boy, whatever. I was like, what are we getting together? What's happening here? And his dramatic exit when he was like done with her with the ice thing, first of all, laughed, but I was also like, oh my God, no. I need them to be together. And that the moment when they do, I don't want to say get back together, because they just hugged, like they just had each other back in their lives. They kind of just like, right, they kind of like put everything, kept everything in the past. That felt so special, and like I had chills, and they didn't kiss, right? I'm not forgetting that.
They went very
I'm glad
80s
that
movie with it.
Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't, because I feel like that doesn't always have to be the be all end all expression of love on TV. Like it can just be like, we're not there yet. We're just gonna hug it out, and that's gonna feel as special as a kiss. I love that scene so much.
It was amazing, and I think that's the important thing, because that was the last time we saw Courtney in the finale. I think that was important because yes, when watching it as a series finale, you might be like, they're not going to have time to get back together. What are we going to do with these 10 minutes? But at the same time, when a scene like that comes across, it came at me in a very realistic kind of way, because at the end of the day, I don't think Cameron's in a place where he can be in a relationship. He needs a lot of help first. And regardless of how he feels about Courtney, she's the person who can help him, because she's done this with so many heroes before. And I think that was what it was important, because he said, do you really think you can help me? Of course, she didn't answer the question. She ran towards him and gave him a huge hug, which of course is the answer. But I just think there was so much unsaid by that very, very short scene, and we knew what needed to be said by it. It did all the work more than like dialogue or one kiss or anything could have been. It didn't wrap it up in a neat little bow, but it got the story to where it needed to be. And then you can have the time jump later on, wrap it up in a neat little bow. But
the time jump. Can we?
Right.
You said it, and now I need to discuss it.
We do.
First of all, there was the 3-month one where that was Cindy, right?
No, that was Artemis, the daughter of the daughter of the Crocs. She wanted to get vengeance on Icicle for killing her parents, and she did.
I was shocked. I was like, "Oh, we're gonna end the show with burning a man alive."
Right.
But then they hit us with the other one.
It was very Vampire Diaries. She was having her Julie Plec moment.
Oh yeah.
just up at the top, dramatic. We're at a castle and burns the man alive. So he got his comeuppance.
Yes. You see, when he went, when Cameron sent him flying literally, and we saw the big ice face fly into the sky, I was like, now hold on a minute, we can't end like this, because while that ambiguous send the villain off, they'll come back at some point. We've seen on the Flash countless times with the Reverse Flash, but because the show had already killed Icicle in season 1, letting him loose into the atmosphere in season 3 would have been a bit of a disappointment when the show needed to end. So I'm glad we did go back there. Listen to me, I sound all murderous. I'm glad he died. But I feel like that was an important death. He got away. They were like, is either will he ever come back, whatever. But I think of all the characters on the show, it was most important that Artemis was the one that got to kill Icicle, because at the end of the day, the way he destroyed her parents and her family, who had really made a great deal of progress, that was disgusting. So I mean, like, he got his comeuppance, and I'm not sad about it. But it was interesting. I feel like if the show had gone on, it would have left Artemis in a place like, can I really be a hero when I just committed the ultimate sin? But the time jump that takes us 10 years into the future shows us that Artemis did find her way to heroism, because when the Shade is talking about all of the heroes on the new JSA, he does name drop Artemis. So she got to join the JSA. He also name drops Icicle, who we can assume was Cameron, got to join the JSA. Of course, he name drops Jakeem Thunder, because him and the Thunderbolt pen have now become one. He also name dropped Stripe 2.0, which I believe is Mike. He obviously starts operating Pat's robot. And then, of course, we have the rest of the JSA as well. So I really appreciated that scene, because even though, first of all, as you know, I love the Shade. I've talked about my favorite old-fashioned British man for the whole run of the show. I'm glad in the end he was a villain. He got to redeem himself as well. Now he's like the tour guide of the JSA museum. Love that.
Like a docent.
Love that for him. But even though Stargirl was not in that scene, I think that scene did an awful lot to show the legacy of the JSA. And at the end of the day, this is the legacy that Courtney Whitmore started. And it was just an incredible scene. It's so nice to think that we could pick up, if we ever revisit the story, we could re-pick up in the 10 years between the time jump, or we could pick up after this time jump and meet them all again as adult characters. Because yes, Courtney has become Star Woman, and I did also appreciate that they referenced Dragon Queen, suggesting that Cindy has finally joined the JSA.
She beat the allegations.
She did.
She
That's
did.
a girl.
Oh man, it was so nice. I will say I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get to see more of her in the episode, because I feel like the way they all turned on her and doubted her, we could have done with maybe a scene between her and Yolanda, like saying, I'm sorry I doubted you, and Cindy could have been like, I'm sorry for all the horrible things I did to you over the years. But the fact that Cindy showed up at the Whitmore house, it was part of their big festive dinner, I think probably did all the work it needed to. She's officially part of the team now, and that's great. And can we talk about her father becoming a plush gorilla? Like, I mean,
oh my God, yeah. I was screaming.
And they are not treating that stuffed animal well. Not that they should. He was awful to her, but like, just does the dog have it during the dinner? Do they have a dog? Someone has it.
Yes, yeah. The Whitmore dog was tearing it to pieces. And she was like, hope you're having fun, Daddy, which is what she always called him. So, I mean, sinister as always, but that's Cindy. And I mean, like, that's the kind of like, I mean, comeuppance is not the right word, but that's the kind of comeuppance she deserved, because everybody treated her so awfully when she was trying to make an effort. And I feel like she's finally gotten over her issues, and she can finally be a hero with the rest of them. But I mean, to go back to the flash forward scene, I mean, like, I was very happy to see Jay Garrick show up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
shocked. I was like, what are you doing here?
Right.
He broke the table. I was so sad about that. Sorry.
He did. The poor Shade went to such effort not to let that break. But just a bit of reference, Jay Garrick was part of Stargirl's JSA. In season 1, they talked about him. They talked about the Flash. And then in season 2, we find out they actually had John Wesley Shipp play him. But that Flash died with the rest of the first JSA. So the Jay Garrick that knew Starman, that knew all of the original JSA, I don't believe is still alive. They even referenced recently.
Different one.
So the fact that he came through a portal or a wormhole when he destroyed the table very much suggests that this is Arrowverse's Jay Garrick / Earth Prime's Jay Garrick, the one you saw in the season finale of the Flash read. Well, okay, that one came from 2049, but that's not the point. But present day Jay Garrick.
You had me, then you lost me. You gave me too many numbers.
So, and the fact that he said that the fact that he said we need the JSA made it sound, which Courtney Whitmore tells me you're now a member of, Shed, makes it sound like he is not a member of the JSA, makes it sound like this is not the Jay Garrick that we once saw in Stargirl that was a member of the original JSA, which very much suggests like, hi, I've come from another world to pick up my other Earth besties. Can you come help me with a problem? So could everyone's now, I think the running theory is, could we see Stargirl and the JSA finally make the first appearance on The Flash in its final season? Because that was kind of one of the loose ends tied up by Crisis, or left open by Crisis on Infinite Earths. It would be cool to see.
But don't you think we're like wishing a lot on the final season of The Flash?
Yeah, I know what
we
you
are,
mean.
but you know what? They like to stuff things into. If we do like one episode arcs and reserve like 3 to 4 episodes for them to tie up Arrowverse loose ends, we can still do it.
That's true. I just feel like I keep seeing like, oh, well, they tied this up on The Flash. Well, they tied this up on The Flash. And I'm like, I don't know, guys. They got 13 episodes. They got to do their own stuff. I mean, I want it for everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I swear, give me the JSA over Team Flash any day of the week. I would happily watch that. I'm sorry, not sorry. But yeah, it does feel like The Flash has Green Arrow and the Canaries, Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, and now just Stargirl all to tie up. But I feel like Stargirl was left in such a beautifully triumphant place, as in our work is never done, but let's take this moment to celebrate this victory. And I think when the Shade he referenced the ISA, he referenced Eclipso, and then he referenced the Ultrahumanite, which are the villains of the 3 seasons. But then he started talking about the Nebula Man and the Saving the Seven Soldiers of Victory, which I assume were the stories that the future of seasons were supposed to tell, and then didn't happen, unfortunately, because I believe Jeff Johns had storylined 6 seasons, which shocked me. I thought the show could have gone on for 4 or 5. Didn't expect 6 to be the option, which is kind of awful now because it only got halfway through its run. But I mean, for a series finale to just not only wrap up the current season storyline, wrap up the storylines that season 1 and 2 left open, and then also skip forward and show us what happened to our characters in the future. I just think I couldn't have asked for anything more from a series finale. That's how you do it. And it's pretty funny that this wasn't originally intended to be a series finale. So how does it end up on my favorite list of series finales ever? I don't know. That's kind of spectacular, but that's Stargirl in a nutshell for me. I am so proud and so happy of that finale. I watched the whole thing with a smile on my face. I know I was supposed to be live tweeting, but I did not touch my phone until the breaks. I was glued to it from start to finish. And I believe I said in a tweet afterwards that is the ultimate series finale for me, because it left me wanting more, and yet it left me feeling completely and utterly satisfied. And I don't think you could want anything else from a series finale of one of your favorite shows.
And that it feels like it would live on anyway. Like that last title, Never the End, was beautiful. Like I wasn't invested in the show, but I got a little teary when it came out.
I was like, what are they doing to me? Michael, I have to ask, do you think, like, obviously fans would want the show to not have ended with season 3, but do you think now that we know these 3 seasons are the series, at least for now, because they said it's never the end, but I mean, we're not going to hope on that for too long. But as it stands with these 3 seasons, do you think the series works as a trilogy? Like, do you think the storytelling is like complete within these 3 seasons?
Without a doubt, yes. This is my favorite movie trilogy. I just, the fact, like, we saw them, I said very much, this was very much a season story about the murder mystery, who killed the gambler, and then halfway through it pivots, and all of a sudden the icicle history comes into it, the former JSA versus ISA history comes into it. This very much was not just focused on wrapping up its own story. It wrapped up the previous 2 season stories, any of the loose ends. We saw Mike get to see his birth mother there and visit her in the diner for that beautiful scene, and then he still called Barbara mom. I thought that scene broke me. I really, really got emotional at that one. Like, just one little scene when he called Barbara mom was beautiful. We also got to see, of course, Cindy become the hero of the story as well. Mike, we find out in the future that he becomes a member of JSA. Jordan got his comeuppance as well. My goodness, what did they do to my man Starman? That poor man, all he went through. But we did find out in the flash forward from the Shed that the JSA did rescue the real Starman. They put his brain back in his body, and I assume he retired after that. And I believe me, after what he'd been through, he should have. I assume Pat retired after that as well, now that Mike's taken over a Stripe. It just, every little loose thread was wrapped up. We also learned that Jenny and her brother, Green Lantern's daughter, and her twin brother, were also both members of the new JSA. The Shade was a member of the new JSA. Every story, every tease, every nod they referenced throughout those 3 seasons somehow got wrapped up either in this season or this series finale. And I just think that is an incredible end to an incredible story. I said that each season of Stargirl feels like a movie, but all of Stargirl collectively feels like a movie now. And how they pull that off, I do not know. I will absolutely go on record saying here that Stargirl had the smoothest run of all of the Arrowverse shows, and that is by far the best series finale that any of them have given so far. We will see if The Flash can match it, but Stargirl has always been in a league of its own, and now bowing out prematurely, it continues to be in a league of its own. And that is why I'm both satisfied, and yet I will miss the show terribly, because it's just been so much fun.
It's a mic drop right there.
Yeah.
How do we follow that?
We don't, but The Flash can try.